Know what you would like us to talk about.
That's because we're your news channel. And every morning at 6 a.m, it's breakfast on GB News.
My name's Tom Harwood and join me 9:30 a.m. every weekday for The Briefing, your one-stop shop for everything you need to know about what's going on in politics today. I wonder if this is a deal that might need to be like the biscuits in this factory, twice baked. Is there not an opportunity here to win out against the extremes?
Tom Harwood, GB News.
What are you going to do about it?
Things should have been done differently, and they certainly are being done differently. Don't
miss it. The Briefing with me, Tom Harwood, 9:30 Monday to Friday on GB News.
Where would you like to go?
Just take me to the studio, please, mate. You know where you're going. I've got a show to do. Friday Night Feast on GB News, 7 p.m. And it's like nothing you've ever seen before. We take a different angle on the week's biggest news stories. The viewers and listeners set me some absolutely mad challenges to do. We tried to rehome a rescue dog. And yes, there's some other wacky stuff in there as well. I feel like I could take on the world. Well, that's that. Friday Night Feast with me, Patrick Christie's, every Friday, 7 till 9 p.m. on GB News. Be there.
Hey, welcome along to tonight's Mark Steyn Show. Coming up over the next hour, the big bag build-up continues at Heathrow. But how high will it go? Are incoming flights at risk of crashing into mountains of baggage left out on the runway? As the G7 leaders party in the Bavarian Alps, it's Build Back Baggier for you losers down at sea level. We'll have the latest on the airport chaos as legions of passengers remain socially distanced from their luggage. The ringleader of the notorious Rochdale grooming gang can't get a flight out either. He's here to stay. Laura Perrins will be sticking it to our incompetent government over that one. Plus, HMG's modified limited hangout on killer COVID vaccines continues. Last week, we heard that 3 Steyn Show guests would be receiving compensation because the vaccines killed their loved ones. Today, we meet a fourth, a man who was left paralysed by the vaccine, but is now going to be compensated by the government. Plus, the most vital part of the show, all the more important when we live in the constant swirl of a blizzard of lies. Your comments and questions, send them along by email to gbviews@gbnews.uk. Tweet me at gbnews. Be as robust, as trenchant, as vigorous as you wish to be. Full strength, because we can take it. That's all coming up after the headlines with Polly Middlehurst.
Half hour, the top story is that Ghislaine Maxwell has been sentenced to 20 years behind bars for helping the convicted sex offender Jeffrey Epstein abuse teenage girls. The British socialite was found guilty last December of trafficking young girls to the financier between 1994 and 2004. Prosecutors in the case described Maxwell's conduct as shockingly predatory, and the judge told the court, whether you're rich or powerful, nobody is above the law. 4 female victims spoke at the hearing, which took place in New York. Virginia Giuffre's lawyer read out a statement in her absence. Miss Maxwell apologised to her victims, saying she hoped the sentence would give them peace and finality. Well, in other news tonight, the UK's largest police force has been placed under special measures following a series of failures. The Met Police faced heavy criticism following the death of Sarah Everard, who was killed by a serving officer. It'll now be monitored and scrutinised by Her Majesty's Inspectorate. The Home Secretary and London Mayor welcome the move, saying the force has failed to get the basics right. Sadiq Khan says the next challenge is appointing a new commissioner.
I will not be supporting the appointment of a new commissioner unless he gets it, unless he understands the challenges we face, unless he has an action plan to address some of the issues raised today by the police inspectorate, unless he is a reforming commissioner. Londoners deserve better. My job as the mayor is to make sure we get better.
Scotland's First Minister is launching a bid for a second independence referendum in the country. The bill, which needs Westminster's approval first, proposes a vote to take place on the 19th of October next year and asking the same question as in 2014, which is, should Scotland be an independent country? Boris Johnson says it's not the time for a referendum and it's up to the Supreme Court now to decide. Nicola Sturgeon says she won't allow Scottish democracy to be a prisoner of any Prime Minister.
The Conservatives have just 6 MPs in Scotland, barely 10% of Scottish representation, and yet they have ripped us out of the EU against our will. They have created the worst cost of living crisis in the G7 and saddled us with the second lowest growth in the G20.
The Queen has joined the armed forces at the Palace of Holyrood House as they marked her Platinum Jubilee in Scotland. Members of the Army, Navy and Air Force took part in a loyalty parade in the Palace Gardens. Her Majesty travelled to Edinburgh yesterday for the royal family's traditional Holyrood week of events. You're up to date on TV, online and on your radio via DAB+. You're with GB News, where now it's time for Mark Steyn.
Well, as you just heard from Polly there, Ghislaine Maxwell has been sentenced to 20 years in federal prison in the United States for sex trafficking, for trafficking underage girls to powerful men. It's a characteristic bit of US federal flim-flam, this case. The only people who will pay any price for the entire Jeffrey Epstein business are 2 British subjects, 2 foreigners as they are in America, and that is Prince Andrew, the Duke of York, and now Ghislaine Maxwell. It's interesting, the way it normally works in federal justice in the United States when they come after you is you give them the names of bigger fish, and then you cop a plea, you do a deal with them, and they go use what you've told them to get the bigger fish. Unfortunately for Miss Maxwell, she doesn't get to do that because the big fish she can name are too big. They're governors and senators and at least one president who was a regular on the Lolita Express to Jeffrey Epstein's pedo island, and that was Bill Clinton. So she can't, she's got a Rolodex full of names that are too big for her to trade. So she is going to likely die in an American prison. A great victory. We've got the woman who trafficked all these underage girls. So now we don't have to go after any of the powerful men who had sex with any of the underage girls. We've got a little bit more on the problem of underage girls and the men who prey on them coming up a bit later. That's on the domestic front, not quite as glamorous as the Lolita Express. Instead, it's Rochdale and Oldham and places like that. To reprise one of my favourite George Orwell lines after he attended a miners' meeting that he thought a little too quiescent, there is no turbulence left in England, and we surely could use some in England, in Scotland, in Northern Ireland, in Wales. We started last night's show with a clip of Her Majesty's UK and Canadian Prime Ministers. They were at the Commonwealth Conference in Rwanda, and then they had to fly on to the G7 in Germany, and when they landed, they did a little bit of leaden shtick about which of these global colossi had the smaller plane.
I saw Canada Force One. Big plane. Fantastic.
Yeah, it's not quite as big as yours.
No, ours is very, very.
Yeah, well, we're both very small.
Very modest. Very modest.
Oh, cracks me up every time that. Jacinda Trudeau, Blackface One is way smaller than Boris Johnson's Cake Force One. When you're a PM and the summer months are just spent on a grand tour jetting from the Commonwealth Conference to the G7 to the NATO summit, then looking out the window at the other guy's jet is really all there is to do to while away the hours. Meanwhile, for you losers, here's Heathrow. Oh yeah, look at that. Don't forget to social distance, boys and girls. Wuhan may be releasing a Terminal 2 variant any day now. You know that fabulous beachfront hotel you booked? Well, the first 3 nights you're sleeping on the terminal floor. Oh, lovely. And here's the orderly security line at Manchester Airport recently. Let's take, oh yeah, look at that. That's here's a tip for any would-be jihadists for whom time is money and money is time. You may find it easier just to blow up all the fellows standing around the airport trying to get in. No need to bother with the security. Yeah, look at that. You don't have to get into the secure zone anymore. That's Birmingham. Birmingham Airport, where just getting inside the building is an accomplishment. And here's Bristol Airport. Let's take a look at Bristol. Oh, yeah, same thing there. But if you've got a 4 p.m. in the afternoon flight, best to get there the night before and sleep in the terminal. Oh, and here's your suitcase. Let's see where the suitcase is. Yeah, there we are. That's yours, the 37,000th from the left in the top corner. Oh, wait, no, my mistake. This is your bag, this one. I think it's actually the 47,000th from the right there down at the bottom. My mistake, I do regret that. Don't you think it would be nice if our leaders had to live in the world they've made for us? If Boris Johnson and Jacinda Trudeau, instead of sitting around bantering about who has the biggest jet, had to fly from the Commonwealth in Rwanda to the G7 in Germany to the NATO summit in Madrid, the same way you have to fly. And if you arrive, your bag is driven away by a cleaner, because there are no baggage handlers anymore apparently, and winds up somewhere around the back of parking garage J47, and you have to go to the big world leader get-together looking like a woozy, bloated, unkempt slob. Oh, wait. Oh, yeah. Look at that. Where's oh, yeah, there's Boris. Yeah, but he looks like he's been sleeping with your luggage somewhere at Heathrow for a couple of days. They've taken off their ties to show they're men of the people, even though there are no actual people around for 50 miles. They're at Schloss Elmau in the Bavarian Alps, high on a hill where the G7 big shots, lady, Boris and Justin and Joe and Emmanuel are working tirelessly. Sorry, I meant they're working tirelessly for you. All the things that are most important to you. All the things that are most critical to the way you live. Net zero. Ukraine. More net zero. COVID vaccines for your dog. More Ukraine. More net zero. Digital ID. More net zero. COVID vaccines for your cockatoo. More Ukraine. These are the world's 7 leading economies, and increasingly, nothing works. You know, Dubes was saying when she looked at this airport chaos, said she'd be content with camping in Cleethorpes. Camping in Cleethorpes. If you want to meet Michelle, go camping in Cleethorpes. They'll wreck that. It sounds like even that would be beyond them, but they will wreck it. Yesterday we were discussing the end of freedom of speech. As a practical matter, we are now also losing freedom of movement. Oh, sure, I don't want to exaggerate. It's not the Iron Curtain. It's not the Berlin Wall. You still have the freedom to spend 2 weeks sleeping on the concourse at Bristol Airport. Meanwhile, the only thing taxiing down the runway and taking off is your country. Attention all passengers at gate D57, the United Kingdom of Great Britain and Northern Ireland is now departing the first world for a bleak future as a post-developed nation. Oh, wait a minute, we have breaking news from Bangladesh. Breaking news from Bangladesh. Immigration in 18 seconds. E-gates open at Dhaka Airport. 18 seconds, poof, in and out at Dhaka. We need to get whatever it is, the Bangladeshi Airport Authority to start running UK airports. Meanwhile, Boris and Justin and the rest of the oldest established permanent floating crap game of crap-tape clowns jets on into the blue. G7, NATO, photo ops with Bono in Kiev, the opening of Klaus Schwab's new hollowed-out Alp just above the Jungfrau, the endless summer of summits. Summit for them, nothin' for you. Look at Heathrow, look at Bristol. That's the new normal. That's the Great Reset. That's Build Back Better. You know, Boris and actually 12 years of Tory prime ministers have bungled an awful lot of things. And it's a testament to the absolute crapness of our political class that Keir Starmer and the Ginger Growler are no more than, I think, 5 points ahead in the YouGov poll and 2 points ahead in some other poll taken a couple of days ago, because it's beyond the Conservative Labour thing. This political class is completely not up to the job. And what they're talking about is not relevant to your lives. And we're bifurcating into a society where the elite are jetting around on their private jets, and there's a big Latin American style mass all forced to find a bit of floor on the concourse at the airport to sleep in. Let me know what you think. gbviews@gbnews.uk. We have a little bit of good news for you, not too much. We wouldn't want you to get carried away. That's coming up. I can't count how many times I've flown from Shannon on the west coast of Ireland to Heathrow. Always used to have a good time there. Quite like that airport. It's sentimental to me. It's just a little up and down shuttle flight from Shannon, boomf, Heathrow, down. No big deal, or it wasn't until the permanent abnormal came along. Jackie Grant from Pennsylvania was on that Shannon-London flight on Saturday. Jackie is now in central London. Her luggage is who knows where. Now, Jackie, this is Saturday you took the plane. It's now Tuesday night. Do you have any news on the whereabouts of your luggage?
Hi, Mark. No, unfortunately, I'm not getting any update from the airline whatsoever.
And you actually have something quite important in that luggage, don't you?
I do, and I made them aware that I have medications that I need to take every day. I had enough on my person to last me until yesterday. And I let them know the urgency that I had of getting the luggage back, the one piece of luggage that they lost. And it just hasn't made any difference to them at all. It's just, they say, oh, we're doing everything we can politely every single day for the last 3 days with no real update.
So you had enough medicine for 3 or 4 days. So quite reasonably, you took that in your hand, your carry-on, because you assume that even if the bag goes astray, it's between Shannon and London, and they just put it on the next flight, so you'll get it 10 hours later or whatever.
That's exactly what I assumed. I know for a fact that there have been at least four, potentially at this point 5 flights since mine that have come from Shannon to Heathrow, and still I have no idea where my bag is.
Now, when you were at Shannon, did they tell you, we can check you in, but you might want to be aware that things are going wacky at the Heathrow end?
No, they didn't. And I will tell you, it seemed exceptionally calm at the Shannon airport. In fact, I probably jinxed it. And I said to my husband, I said, well, so far this trip has been absolutely smooth. It just seemed, I didn't even see it coming. I mean, it was out of nowhere.
Now, I take it your bag is among the ones we just showed in some of the stills. It's just like in a huge mountain, probably in the Guinness Book of Records by now, for world's highest mountain of suitcases. I take it that it's sitting there somewhere out on runway 3 or behind parking garage 47B, and eventually they'll get it to you. But what I find odd is that ever since 9/11, it's supposed to be the situation where they identify your bag and they can tell you where on earth that bag is at any minute of the day. And yet here, apparently, notwithstanding that security feature, it's all just gone to hell.
It has gone to complete hell. And when we landed in Heathrow, I did observe those massive piles of luggage, and I'd never seen anything like it before. I've never seen anything like this. And I spoke with people in the lost luggage line who had been waiting 10, 12, 14 days for their luggage. There are so many people out there who have it even worse than I do. And they're still waiting with no updates. You cannot reach a live person. You can't talk to anyone.
Well, you weren't able to reach a live person, so we contacted Aer Lingus for you, Jackie, and they said this. This is the official explanation from Aer Lingus. The recent airport baggage system failure in London Heathrow has resulted in baggage delays for some Aer Lingus customers. Our team on the ground is continuing to work closely with all the relevant handling agents. We apologise to Ms. Grant for the continued delay in receiving her bags, which is due to circumstances outside of our control. Our team will provide an update directly as soon as possible. I decode that as saying it could be another 2-3 weeks. So what are you going to do about your medication? Can you get some FedExed from the US? Can you get it from an English pharmacy?
So, Mark, I'm attempting to do those things now. Currently, we are scheduled to fly home to the States tomorrow morning. God willing, we can get on the flight and I can get home and I can get my medications that I need. If there's any delays at the airport, it's going to be a whole new set of issues. Right now, I'm just really focused on
I don't blame you, Jackie, and I apologise to you on behalf of the United Kingdom for making this trip for you such hell. You shouldn't have had to go through this. It's embarrassing, it's humiliating, and when you see Boris Johnson and Joe Biden backslapping tireless in the Bavarian Alps, it's surely a reminder of just how useless our global leadership class is at the moment. Thank you, Jackie. We're going to stay on Aer Lingus over this. I saw a similar situation with Qantas, and I see that they're now being hashtagged as Qantas. Apparently, the last two letters on the vowel at the end of Qantas is now a long A, Qantas. I don't know whether it's Aer Lingus, but that kind of revised pronunciation of legacy airlines might be spreading. Simon Calder writes for The Independent. He used to clean the planes for Freddie Laker. Laker Airways, the good old days, 59 quid, London, New York. You can't beat that. Simon, it's good to see you. We have reports that cleaners are driving the baggage around at Heathrow. Why would cleaners now be put in charge of the luggage?
Look, I don't know. I cannot substantiate any of those rumours, Mark. And while I have hugely enjoyed the past 20 minutes of your show, I'm going to take some exception with it. Now, first of all, poor Jackie's case. I am really, really sorry that she's in this pickle. It's just awful. The bag obviously could be anywhere that Aer Lingus flies, including, ironically, the US, which it flies to from Shannon, or it might still be in Shannon. It might be in Terminal 2. We just don't know. Now, crucially, anybody, please, watching this, assume when you check in your bag, you will never, ever see it again. Now, I'm not just saying that because of the present difficult times. I'm saying it because in any circumstances, that is the only rational thing to do. If you possibly can, travel only with hand luggage, and if there's anything you desperately need and you cannot do without, like medication, then it shouldn't be in your checked-in bag, because you just have to assume that's it. As soon as it trundles off on that conveyor belt, that's the last you've seen of it.
Yeah, that's always been theoretically true. And at least, in the 70s, there's 50 years ago, comedians were doing jokes about your baggage being sent to an entirely different country or whatever. This is something beyond that, though, Simon. This is not just the luck of the draw. I mean, we've all had that. I flew to Minneapolis and they sent my bags to Portland, Oregon. That happens, and they get them back to you the following day and apologise for it. That's not what's happening at Heathrow right now, though, is it?
Well, I think, about 9 days ago, I saw the remains of the Heathrow baggage mountain actually being taken away. It did grow to quite a pop-up work of art. Some people say it was a contender for the next Turner Prize, but it has gradually shrunk. And of course, can I just pick up on something you said about since 9/11, bags cannot fly separately from their owners. That was a kind of general principle put in place, can you believe it, back in 1988 after the terrible Lockerbie bombing. But actually, it's got more relaxed since the airlines were able to scan bags. It's now the case that you might be thinking, oh, well, the flight can't go without me because it's got my bag in the hold. Well, sometimes the flight will go without it. But everything, Mark, is completely overstretched. The UK was squashed further than any other country by the government's travel restrictions, and it's bounced back with a pent-up demand to travel more than any other country. And as a result of that, well, the system cannot cope, and it's poor old passengers like Jackie who are suffering. But meanwhile, the people in the front line of the aviation industry aren't having the best of times either, not least because of the abuse that they are sometimes, I'm so sorry to say, sustaining from passengers.
Well, let me ask you about that, because it's been interesting to me. Nations that depend on tourism, France, which certainly depends on it, have been among the most keen to exclude aliens, infidels from within their jurisdiction. It's a pretty important, and there are all kinds of knock-on effects. I mean, people have to fly into the UK in order to see a West End show. So if you can't actually land at Heathrow in an efficient manner, then London Theatre is going to take a huge hit. There's all these kind of knock-on effects. Why do you think people have been actually so cavalier about such an essential industry?
OK, so let me deal with those 2 points. So first of all, France most certainly. Just do you remember when Omicron was spreading shortly before Christmas, the French suddenly said, basically for 4 weeks, if you're British, you're not coming in here. Spain has continued to have more draconian rules than almost any other country. And considering it's our favourite holiday destination, that has been very, very uncomfortable. But in terms of inbound tourism, we have, as a nation, absolutely, we are world class in keeping people out. And that's why, and I've just checked the latest figures from the Office for National Statistics from January to April, our tourism numbers are half what they were in 2019. And we've done that through a combination of things. First of all, by, of course, having lots of travel restrictions in place until halfway through March. We've also done it. Now, I'm going to mention Brexit because, in a sense, Brexit and the slump in sterling, which followed Brexit, really ought to be encouraging people here, because sterling is worth 15% less than it was before the referendum. But unfortunately, the rule that has been brought in by Priti Patel, the Home Secretary, saying we're not allowing anybody in to the UK if they don't have a proper passport, we're not taking identity cards anymore. That's basically saying to 300 million Europeans, you're not coming in unless you go and queue up at the passport office. That's because they've got 300 million people can go to 30 or 40 countries in Europe and around without needing a passport. The only one they can't go to is the UK. So we're doing everything we can to keep people away. And that, I think, is a kind of more enduring problem than the really horrible scenes we've seen at airports. And the ones you mentioned, so Bristol, Manchester, Birmingham, they have cleaned up their acts very considerably, and things are now going quite a lot better.
Do you think this is just a temporary phenomenon, Simon, or do you think something that, Britons used to go to Butlins holiday camps at this time of year, and then suddenly cheap European travel became an option, and we've all got used to that. Do you think this is a permanent change, or do you think it's just a temporary glitch?
Oh, look, I think it is just growing pains with an industry that is trying to come back. Now, let's have a look at where the cancellations are, because that's the most significant thing that's going on. British Airways cancelling far more flights than anybody else, 120 plus per day. They're just cancelling them sometime in advance. But clearly, British Airways promised far more flights this summer than it could deliver, partly in order to keep its hands on its slots. And the government has now absolutely played into their hands by saying, all right, you can have the slot next year, just try a bit harder next time. Same thing at Gatwick. EasyJet, really keen to keep Wizz Air, British Airways, Ryanair off its turf. They promised 10% more flights than they had even in 2019. And guess what? They can't deliver. And that's why we've seen so many short notice cancellations. Again, the government said, all right, keep the slots so we don't get so many last minute cancellations. Wizz Air, British Airways having their own problems. Ryanair just starting to have some issues. Jet2 is the one that's doing all right. And of course, in a decent market, people will be thinking, okay, I think I'll go to Jet2 next time. Or Ryanair, well, they might have all kinds of people saying all kinds of things about them, but actually they're the safest airline in the world, and they're also pretty good at getting you where you need to be on time. So I urge everybody to look at how things are doing, to talk to their friends and family, see who's doing well, see who isn't, and make their own decisions on that basis.
Okay, that's Simon Calder's take, and he thinks this is kind of manageable. It's a bad patch, but that we'll get through it, and freedom of movement might not be entirely dead, and the great Butlins revival might not be happening after all. Your reaction up next, gbviews@gbnews.com. You waited 2 years to get out of the country. And now you can't. And how bad is the situation at UK airports currently? So bad, we can't even put a convicted grooming gang leader, one of the fellas behind the organised gang rape of English maidenhood in towns across the land, we can't even put him on a plane out of here. Laura Perrins will talk about that, plus some good news for Anthony Shingler, another vaccine victim. Stick around, we're coming right back.
We are GB News.
We're right across this great nation.
On TV. On radio.
On digital. Absolutely everywhere.
We don't talk down to you. We embrace all voices with honest and civilised conversation.
We are not part of the establishment. We're one of you.
And we're only getting started.
Join us on GB News, the People's Channel.
Britain's news channel. Hi there, it's Stephen and Anne.
At breakfast from 6 a.m, you'll always be caught up with everything you need to know, the latest headlines, opinions and debates.
We'll bring you the good news and the bad, but most of all, we're here for you.
Remember, send in your views and let us know what you would like us to talk about.
That's because we're your news channel. And every morning at 6 a.m, it's breakfast on GB News.
My name's Tom Harwood, and join me 9:30 a.m. every weekday for The Briefing, your one-stop shop for everything you need to know about what's going on in politics today.
I wonder if this is a deal that might need to be like the biscuits in this factory, twice baked.
Is there not an opportunity here to win out against the extremes?
Tom Harwood, GB News.
What are you going to do about it?
Things should have been done differently, and they certainly are being done differently.
Don't miss it. The Briefing with me, Tom Harwood, 9:30 Monday to Friday on GB News.
Where would you like to go?
Just take me to the studio, please, mate. You know where you're going. I've got a show to do. Friday Night Feast on GB News, 7 p.m. And it's like nothing you've ever seen before. We take a different angle on the week's biggest news stories. The viewers and listeners set me some absolutely mad challenges to do. We tried to rehome a rescue dog. And yes, there's some other wacky stuff in there as well. I feel like I could take on the world. Well, that's that. Friday Night Feast with me, Patrick Christie's, every Friday, 7 till 9 p.m. on GB News. Be there.
We have a bit of an update on the Ghislaine Maxwell situation. She's announced that she will appeal her 20 years sentence because she's been, quote, vilified and tried in the court of public opinion. Miss Maxwell is now in the care of the Bureau of Prisons, which is a dirty, stinking, rotten, corrupt subsidiary of the dirty, stinking, rotten, corrupt US Department of Justice. The Bureau of Prisons put her on suicide watch a couple of days ago, even though she said she wasn't in the least bit suicidal. But they took the precaution of putting her on suicide watch just in case something strange and unexpected should happen in a few days. 20 years. She's not going to be 20 years in the Bureau of Prisons, one way or the other. GB News is the People's channel, so let's hear from the people. Kerry says, I suffered a 22-hour delay going out to Cyprus. Supposed to be flying home Saturday, not looking forward to that delay. Paul says, EasyJet are a joke. It's that famous British sense of irony, Paul. That's why it's called EasyJet. It's ironic. What part of that don't you get? Paula says, we had no issues at all flying from Bristol to the Canaries. Shame on the mainstream media for all their hysterical scaremongering. We're on holiday now. Having a great time. Oh, this year I'm off to the Canaries. Viva Canaries. Good for you, Paula. I wish I was in the Canaries right now. Snap says, just come back from Mallorca. Delayed out, delayed coming back, and cancelled or delayed flights. All over the boards both ways. Steve said Manchester was organised chaos on Friday morning for my flight at 6:35 a.m. That's good if it's organised chaos. You know, it's like the way organised crime is said to be better than disorganised crime. So it's heartening to hear that Manchester Airport is capable of organising chaos, even if they can't organise any flights. Steve says, I was there, already checked in 2 hours before my flight, and had no one allowed me to pass them in the security queue, and had I not ran as soon as I got through security, I'd have missed my flight. I always love seeing people running down the concourse to gate 342. You're very lucky, Steve, that the corridors are free enough to enable you to run through security. A week ago, we had a small breakthrough. The government of the United Kingdom acknowledged that the COVID vaccines can kill you. The first person to receive compensation for that will be Vicky Spitt, a regular guest on this show in recent weeks and one who lost Zion, the great love of her life, there he is, to the AstraZeneca. The second and third persons to receive compensation have also been guests on this show. That's Kelly Hatfield and Joe Ward, who both lost their respective dads. And tonight we present a fourth guest who has been told he will be compensated by the government for what the COVID vaccine did to him. Anthony Shingler got the shot and has just spent 420 days in hospital. That's over a year. How are you feeling these days, Anthony?
I'm recovering very slowly, but getting stronger. Probably every couple of weeks. I feel a bit more strength, but I don't know how long it's going to take for me to be back to normal, if I get back to normal.
When did you know something was badly wrong?
I first went for my jab in March last year, 2021. I had the jab. The next day I was feeling a bit nauseous, a bit sleepy. Had a few hours in bed, got up, felt okay. And all that week I was just having aching legs all the time, and I just thought I'd overdone it at work. The week after that, on the Wednesday, my legs were getting really bad. I managed to go to work until Friday, and I was sent home by the health and safety person on site. Told me to go get checked out. I went to, I phoned my doctor, which they couldn't fit me until the next day, and that would be a phone call only. it was getting a bit serious, and I thought, I'll ring an ambulance. We got an ambulance, went to hospital, sent away with, saying I got a I can't think of the word. I got something wrong. They sent me back home. I went back again the next day. They sent me home with sciatica, but I knew what sciatica was. I've had sciatica before.
Yeah.
I had to end up going back again this time. Sorry, Mark, go on.
No, so you had to go back 3 times to get taken seriously by the hospital in Stoke. I take it was in Stoke-on-Trent. Now, you were eventually diagnosed with Guillain-Barré syndrome, which we've known about for a century or so, but it's it's very rare. Had you even heard of that at the time they told you that's what you had?
I had no idea what it was. No idea whatsoever. I never looked up on vaccines. As far as I'm concerned, vaccines were very safe. That's what I always thought. I used to go for the flu vaccine every single year. Swore by the flu vaccine. It really kept me, away from flus, colds, and everything else. They did offer it me when I was in hospital, the flu vaccine, but I said no. And personally, I won't go near another vaccine again.
Well, let me ask you about this diagnosis of yours. We had someone with Guillain-Barré on last week, and she was in a hospital in North Lancashire and was astonished to discover that there were other patients with that hitherto rare disease in that small Lancashire hospital, and the nurses and doctors hadn't really told her about that. When you were diagnosed, did the nurses and doctors in Stoke-on-Trent immediately tell you, oh yeah, this is something to do with the vaccine?
Not immediately. Not immediately. It was dismissed at first. I had trouble. My wife had trouble trying to explain to the doctors. She looked up transverse myelitis, which was the symptoms I was giving. And she ended up begging one of the doctors. She was outside on the car park. It was in the COVID. Everywhere was locked off. You couldn't get in there. She was on the car park talking to a doctor, and she begged the doctor to look into transverse myelitis. Lucky enough, he did. He did look into it, and it was after they did tests. A lumbar puncture does tell you whether it's Guillain-Barré. The proteins are. I had double the proteins that I'm supposed to have had. And that's one of the signs that you might have Guillain-Barré. And that's when, after that lumbar puncture and the doctors came round, they did say it was possibly post-AstraZeneca. They looked at the medical record.
Just let me... Just hold up there a minute, because I just want to be clear about this. You're in there, you're seeing doctors. The first couple of times the doctors send you home. Whatever it is, it's not serious. Don't worry about it. Eventually, you get a correct diagnosis because your wife cares enough about you to actually beard one of these guys in the car park of the hospital. So the critical part of your healthcare experience actually takes place in the car park, because that's where your wife finally manages to buttonhole a member of the medical profession and tell them what they ought to be looking into.
Yes, and that was during an argument as well, because the doctor was giving her statistics regarding COVID, and my wife turned around and said, my husband hasn't got COVID, which I knew I hadn't got COVID. It wasn't. I honestly didn't know what it was.
How do you feel now about this £120,000? That's not a lot if you're going to have to try and make that last for what remains. Rather than being able to work and make the living you were used to be able to make. How do you feel about that?
Mark, it's not a retirement fund. It's okay for now, for the minute, to I can make a few adjustments at home, so I can get around better and turn the bathroom into a wet room, a shower room instead, which is going to help. But obviously it's going to cost money, and I'm going to use some of that money to do that. In the long run,
well,
I'd rather give the £120,000 back and be as I was, going to work 5 days a week.
I don't.
Kicking a ball about with my grandson.
No, I don't blame you, Anthony. Good luck to you. There is going to be a lot more payouts of this. The government made people who did not need to take a medical intervention have a medical intervention, and so this is directly on the government. It's directly on Her Majesty's government, from Her Majesty downwards, who was talking up this thing when she, you know, Jeremy Vine of Radio 2, he did a little video. He's got the latest variant, whatever it is. It's like a nothing little variant. He's doing a little thing in bed. He's going, I'm Jeremy Vine and I'm talking croaky because I've got the COVID. There are people whose lives are ruined. Get over your croakiness. Get over it. What we've done has made everything. The government's not talking about why I've got a bit of a croaky. I've got a croaky voice. OK, let's shut down the country because Jeremy Vine's got a croaky voice. Good luck to you, Anthony. We're going to stay on this as we do. And congratulations on being the fourth to hear from the government. Stump the Steyn is looming, and Laura Perrins won't be holding back as she asks why one of the Rochdale ring-leading rapists is going to be in the UK until the end of his days. Not like Ghislaine Maxwell, not like Julian Assange. This guy rapes girls and he's here to stay.
We are GB News.
We're right across this great nation.
On TV. On radio.
On digital. Absolutely everywhere.
We don't talk down to you.
We embrace all voices with honest and civilised conversation.
We are not part of the establishment. We're one of you.
And we're only getting started.
Join us on GB News, the People's Channel.
Britain's news channel. Hi there, it's Stephen and Anne.
At breakfast from 6 a.m, you'll always be caught up with everything you need to know, the latest headlines, opinions and debates.
We'll bring you the good news and the bad, but most of all, we're here for you.
Remember, send in your views and let us know what you would like us to talk about.
That's because we're your news channel. And every morning at 6 a.m, it's breakfast on GB News.
My name's Tom Harwood and join me 9:30 a.m. every weekday for The Briefing, your one-stop shop for everything you need to know about what's going on in politics today.
I wonder if this is a deal that might need to be like the biscuits in this factory, twice baked.
Is there not an opportunity here to win out against the extremes?
Tom Harwood, GB News.
What are you going to do about it?
Things should have been done differently, and they certainly are being done differently.
Don't miss it. The Briefing with me, Tom Harwood, 9:30 Monday to Friday on GB News.
Where would you like to go?
Just take me to the studio, please, mate. You know where you're going. I've got a show to do. Friday Night Feast on GB News, 7 p.m. And it's like nothing you've ever seen before. We take a different angle on the week's biggest news stories. The viewers and listeners set me some absolutely mad challenges to do. We tried to rehome a rescue dog. And yes, there's some other wacky stuff in there as well. I feel like I could take on the world. Well, that's that. Friday Night Feast with me, Patrick Christie's, every Friday, 7 till 9 p.m. on GB News. Be there.
At GB News, we tell the stories of those injured and killed by the vaccines because other radio and TV stations are strangely reluctant to do so. But how bad is the situation at those UK airports? So bad that even a convicted grooming gang leader who's been stripped of his citizenship because he organises the serial gang rapes of little girls. Can't get a plane out of here. Abdulaziz was the head honcho of the Rochdale, quote, grooming gang. He was known as the master to the lower-ranking gang rapists in Rochdale. That's like the boss or the chairman of the board, according to whether you're a Springsteen or Sinatra fan. He was the Springsteen and Sinatra of Rochdale. There he is. And the master didn't have to be that masterful to put one over on Her Majesty's government. Mr. Aziz was stripped of his UK citizenship and scheduled for deportation to his native Pakistan. But 5 days before his court hearing, he renounced his Pakistani citizenship. So as the Home Office has confirmed, his citizenship of the UK has been restored and he ain't going nowhere. Laura Perrins is a co-founder of the excellent website The Conservative Woman. You know, this insults all those victims of this guy and his gang. And we are told yet again that there's nothing that can be done about it.
Yes, good evening, Mark. Just to remind the reviewers, Abdulaziz was one of 9 men convicted of extremely serious sexual offences against girls in Rochdale. Essentially, they groomed young white girls as young as 19 of child sexual exploitation, and they were sentenced in 2012 to various offences. Aziz himself was sentenced to for conspiracy to engage in sexual activity with a child by penetrative sex, and also for trafficking for sexual exploitation a 15-year-old girl. And for both of those offences, he received 9 years each, although they were served concurrently, which is important, and I'll get to at the end. But a number of the men all held dual citizenship, both British and Pakistani, and then the legal fight started to first strip them of their British citizenship and then to deport them. They cannot be deported until their citizenship is stripped. This, as you can imagine, was a very lengthy legal process, and 8 judges had ruled that they could have been stripped of their UK citizenship, but this never actually happened because they cleverly renounced, or Aziz at least, renounced his Pakistani citizenship. And therefore, I believe you cannot be stripped of your British citizenship because you'll be left essentially stateless. So that is the end of the deportation scenario. And remember, the real behind the legal jargon and the many legal battles are the fact that these men are still walking around Rochdale, and some of their victims will just bump into them. I read reports are just bumping into them in the local news agents. So it's not sort of a nice niche little legal argument, you know, that first year law students can get stuck in this summer. And it actually has real consequences for those victims who, as I said, were subject to absolutely grotesque offences. The judge said that these offences were absolutely grotesque. And as I said, actually, which I always say, the aggravating factor in Aziz's case was the real and severe coercion. And I always think it's interesting in that the jury in that particular conspiracy trial was excused from jury duty for a further 15 years, something judges don't do unless the jury has been subject to really horrific evidence, which they were in that case.
But if the upshot is that the guy is just walking around among all the victims he abused, you know, we've just been talking about the breaking news from New York with Ghislaine Maxwell. If Ghislaine Maxwell had said, oh yeah, but actually I did all this child sex trafficking as part of a grooming gang from northern England, and by the way, I was born in Lahore, she'd still be walking around. I mean, we are looking like the chumps of the planet. And it's all very well for judges to say it's grotesque and all the rest of it, but if, as a practical matter, the guy's still walking around among his victims, what message does that send to would-be groomers?
Well, again, I mean, I'll come to the citizenship issue and exactly why. And you know, they never seem to be deported, you know, whether it's high-profile cases like this. But, you know, these rapists and killers, you never seem to be able to deport them because over the Home Secretary, even if they order their deportation, somebody always slams down that Article 8 of the European Convention of Human Rights. Well, this is going to interfere with my family life and privacy. I mean, it's actually nearly a form of trolling of the victims. Well, you didn't care about their family life. You didn't care about their bodily integrity or their privacy. So for you to turn around and then try and argue this article to stop you from being deported, as I said, it's just so wrong in relation to that article coming up again and again to protect serious defendants who've been convicted of serious crimes from being deported. There's an argument, for defendants who have lived here their whole lives, maybe came as children and are convicted of minor offences. I don't think in that case they should be deported. But for these kind of offences, rapists, child exploitation, conspiracy to traffic girls, these are the most serious offences you can get short of homicide. And, the default position should be deportation. But coming to your question of, I was thinking to myself, checking the dates, I was like, why is this guy walking down Rochdale? And Mark, the British justice system, just in the interest of transparency, it's actually a magician. Because if you look at his sentence, he got 9 years and 9 years, right? Some people would think, that means he's going to be locked up for 18 years. No, he served 3 years and 7 months. Because 18 years gets turned into 3 years and 7 months.
We have to leave it there, Laura. But, this shames Britain, a nation, a society that will not protect its most vulnerable girls. 15 years old, 14 years old, 11 years old is a society that should be ashamed of itself. I'm sick of the legalisms. I'm sick of the sophistry. Someone actually does need to show that these guys can be punished. We got time for one Stump the Steyn. Kerry says, a song, please, any song. I love this soft rock ballad that's around at the moment. I went to the G7 and I saw Boris and Justin take their ties off. And I thought, ooh, you look really cool without a tie. The only guy who looks cool without a tie is right here, right now. Dan Wootton, what you got?
Mark, that was beautiful. Oh no, are you comparing my fashion sense to Boris and Trudeau? I feel ashamed, Mark. I'm letting the side down here. But it's late night. It's late night. We're a little bit relaxed. I'm not relaxed, Mark, today, though, about scheming Sturgeon. In fact, I'm very angry because this plan announced today for a second referendum, she knows it's not going to happen. I mean, it's illegal. This is about dividing Scots. So we're going to get into that throughout the show.
Yeah, terrific stuff. It's and he looks fabulous without a tie. He's got a great neck. It's the best neck on telly. And you'll get 2 hours of it after the weather. Stay safe, stay free.
Good evening. Alex Deacon here with your latest weather update. Tomorrow will be a day of sunshine, but also some showers. And the showers will be pretty heavy where they do develop. The winds will be lighter, which means the showers will be fairly slow moving. It's been quite windy today because of this area of low pressure. Quite a few isobars on the chart, blustery and wet, especially in the west from this weather front, which is now just slowly creeping eastwards, so turning soggy through the evening and overnight across the Midlands, more central parts of southern England and northeast England too. Whereas East Anglia and the southeast generally stay dry. A few showers follow across West Wales and southwest England. Temperatures holding up in the teens in most towns and cities. The details for Wednesday, it's going to be fairly messy. It looks like starting pretty drab and damp over northeast England. That rain soon spreading into the northeast of Scotland before heading out into the North Sea. And then we're left with some sunshine and the showers, which will really develop from late morning and through the afternoon. Some heavy ones likely over northern England, parts of eastern Scotland, but also South Wales and southwest England. They will be hit and miss. Not everywhere seeing the showers, not too many. Of course, East Anglia and the southeast, and the sunny spells here, 23 or 24 is possible. Elsewhere, we're generally looking at high teens to low 20s. Still some showers around through Wednesday evening. We're likely to see more of them drifting northwards over Wales, northwest England into southern Scotland. And then Thursday again, although many places will start fine and dry with some sunshine, the showers will get going as we go through the late morning into the early afternoon. Again, they'll be heavy and again, they'll be slow moving. So some places getting a real soaking, Some spots, though, not seeing the showers, dodging them and staying dry with sunny spells and temperatures mostly around about average high teens or low 20s. We may see things turning a bit drier as we go through the next few days. Still some showers on Friday, but turning drier across the south. Some wet weather in the northwest on Saturday, and temperatures just creeping up a little as we go through the weekend.
We are GB News.
We're right across this great nation.
On TV.
On radio.
On digital. Absolutely everywhere.
We don't talk down to you.
We embrace all voices with honest and civilised conversation.
We are not part of the establishment.
We're one of you.
And we're only getting started.
Join us on GB News,
the People's Channel.
Britain's news channel. Hi there, it's Stephen and Anne.
At breakfast from 6 a.m, you'll always be caught up with everything you need to know, the latest headlines, opinions and debates.
We'll bring you the good news and the bad, but most of all, we're here for you.
Remember, send in your views and let us know what you would like us to talk about.
That's because we're your news channel. And every morning at 6 a.m, it's breakfast on GB News.
My name's Tom Harwood, and join me 9:30 a.m. every weekday for The Briefing, your one-stop shop for everything you need to know about what's going on in politics today.
I wonder if this is a deal that might need to be like the biscuits in this factory, twice baked.
Is there not an opportunity here to win out against the extremes?
Tom Harwood, GB News.
What are you going to do about it?
Things should have been done differently, and they certainly are being done differently.
Don't miss it. The Briefing with me, Tom Harwood, 9:30 Monday to Friday on GB News.
Where would you like to go?
Just take me to the studio, please, mate. You know where you're going. I've got a show to do. Friday Night Feast on GB News, 7 p.m. And it's like nothing you've ever seen before. We take a different angle on the week's biggest news stories. The viewers and listeners set me some absolutely mad challenges to do. We tried to rehome a rescue dog. And yes, there's some other wacky stuff in there as well. I feel like I could take on the world. Well, that's that. Friday Night Feast with me, Patrick Christie's, every Friday, 7 till 9 p.m. on GB News. Be there.